thus far, I've talked quite a bit about the crimes of the various characters and lore figures, either ordered high above the chain of command or below. However, now is the time to actually look ourselves in the mirror and to realize that we are not so saintly either. Since Classic, we have participated in countless immoral missions, quests, and decisions. So let us examine player character crimes, non-faction specific or at least not directly ordered by faction leaders, that you could actually play through. Brought to you by WoW Robots, the craziest robot shooter game for your mobile device. If you ever wanted to have a gigantic robot right in your pocket that you can use to battle other people, this would be the game for you. What I like the most is that it is pretty straightforward. You collect and gather your robots, customize them, and immediately you can pilot these huge war machines in epic battles against other people in real time. There are more than 90 robots, all with unique abilities. You can customize them with over 120 weapons, from railguns to flamethrowers. As the game is crazy popular with over 190 million players worldwide, you will never have a problem with finding opponents and team members to play with in co-op mode. However, if you are more of a solo mode gamer yourself, you can always try out Arena and Free for All. Make sure to download the game with my link in the description or the QR code on the screen, and you will get an amazing head start, a robot with a weapon, a unique skin, 100 gold, and 50,000 silver. See you in game. Number 10. Drakkaru. Back in Wrath of the Lich King, there was a time where we actually aided the Lich King directly. While on a quest in Zul'Drak, we have a mission to capture an ice troll. However, the troll, named Drakkaru, proposes a truce and allies with us and helps us. Additionally, he offers his vast knowledge of Drakkaru Keep, the ancient troll fortress, and he guides us in order to fight against the Scourge and gather various artifacts such as Drakari tablets. However, when you end up doing all the work for him, Drakkaru instead betrays us, pledges his allegiance to the Lich King directly, and now he is in charge of cleansing the rest of Zul'Drak as a new Scourge commander of the keep, as well as a master of his own small undead army. Ultimately though, we face off against him and he's all but defeated, and decides now would be a good time to summon his good ally the Lich King to help, but obviously Arthas doesn't appreciate being bothered by some troll like this, and he just annihilates Drakkaru. Now, while I wouldn't say we really did this willingly and we were mainly taken advantage of, we did actually aid the Lich King quite a bit during this questline. Number 9. Animals. So I don't even know how to name this or frame this point, but us as players especially have not been nice to animals in the slightest. Not just on Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, Azeroth, but pretty much to every land and planet we had ever ventured through. While killing animals is necessary, of course, and we did participate in many quests where destroying them was crucial as they were obviously causing a threat, I'd say to much the same extent we have just done damage with no regard and with no excuse. We had enslaved animals, killed endangered species to gather their hides or whatever else they offer, and usually this was just done for profit or for some shady person that offered the quest. To top it all off, we have been aiding this Hemet Nesingwari guy since Classic, and this is literally a dwarf that goes to whatever there is action specifically to hunt rare and dangerous animals. And guess what is usually common with all rare and dangerous animals? Well, they are rare and endangered. Worst of all, Nesingwari never really does this out of survival, food, or whatever else, but it is usually for Wayne reasons and just his own personal achievements. So yeah, we have not been nice to animals on pretty much every planet or land we had ever stepped a foot on. Number 8. Oil Rig. This is mainly an alliance quest, but ultimately it is perpetrated by the player and it isn't really directed by the alliance high chain of command. So both factions are present in the zone and they come up on a perfect spot to dig out oil. It is really rich in oil. However, there is one big problem here. A native centaur tribe is inhabiting the zone and they aren't even hostile. So the Horde wants to pay them for the extraction rights, while a gnome sends the alliance character to learn what the Horde is offering. Once the Alliance realizes that they can't pay that much, the player is sent to just, set up the ring anyway and to just kill off all the native centaurs. Technically, you are sent by a greedy gnome on this mission, but it is ultimately the player that accomplishes this mayhem, and if this is not a crime, then I really don't know what is. Number 7. Hakkar. Drakkaru wasn't the only evil troll we had helped. Do any of you remember long time ago when we actually pretty much helped summon Hakkar the Soul Flayer, one of the biggest evils Azeroth had ever seen? Well, in Tanaris, we run into a troll known as Yekinya that tells us of this prophecy about summoning this ancient evil into the world and how this knowledge cannot fall into the wrong hands. He sends us to recover lost tablets so that they can prevent the Gurubashi from getting their hands on them and summoning Hakkar. Then a few other things happen, but ultimately, we realized that we had just pretty much delivered the direct instructions on how to summon Hakkar into Azeroth directly into the hands of his own fanatical worshipper. The guy flies away and pretty much already summoned Hakkar, starting this whole questline in the Eastern Kingdoms, which ultimately led to the death of many, as we finally managed to subdue the Soul Flayer. Once again, a bit debatable how much this is a crime because we were tricked, but ultimately, we did help a crazy troll summon Hakkar, endangering not just thousands of lives, but Azeroth in general. Number 6. Aiding the Goblins. Goblins in general have a really bad reputation, and while there are nice ones, there are some examples. The reputation is there for a reason. Originally, for this list, I set up a few points, but as there are goblins in all of them, I decided to just bunch them up into one. This would be a bit Horde-centric, as usually the goblins are working with the Horde, but as there are neutral ones as well, it kinda applies to both factions. Pretty much most quests involving the goblins are immoral in one way or the other. If they're not murdering someone, they're exploiting the land, damaging nature, destroying wildlife, as well as abusing the natives. Now, guess what is common with all of these cases? We are the ones that are doing the dirty work, and we are the ones that are ultimately guilty. For example, in Storkheim, you essentially assist goblins that murdered innocent Torrent traders. Then in various zones, you help them experiment and use experimental weapons on natives and wildlife in general. And in terms of helping them destroy the environment, that could honestly just be a separate video because they're constantly endangering the environment itself. In many cases, we are the guilty ones perpetrating evil, and while the quests aren't really framed as evil, as, goblins obviously twist the perspective, when you examine just a bit closer, you realize that we are in fact the bad guys. Number 5. Kyrian Tor Tactics. So, as the Kyrian Tor are at war with the Blue Dragonflight, you are sent to help them, and you encounter, and encounter is a bit of a light word, an ally of the Kyrian Tor enemy. Now, as the Kyrian Tor are bound by a strict moral code, they of course can't use any sort of immoral methods to extract information. However, luckily you are there as a player character, you are not a part of the Kyrian Tor, so the Mage Order essentially just uses you to do their dirty work. Essentially, you use an item to inflict terrible pain upon this sorcerer, and you don't really even have that much of a choice. Ultimately, this was actually quite bad for Blizzard's reputation, that later on they decided to do these types of quests. They pretty much just started adding things like tickling and whatever else in order to make the entire matter a lot less serious. This, however, doesn't discount that the player character was a part of this horrible torture scenario. Number 4. Do the right thing. So, there is this iconic, and I wouldn't even say morally grey quest because it isn't really all that grey, in Hillsbrad Foothills, where Blizzard really went a bit overboard. So, you come upon a horrific scene where a crazy forsaken scientist planted humans into the ground for whatever reason. However, not only are they in the ground up to their head, but there are ghouls everywhere and they're just attacking the heads of the planted victims. So you, the hero, come up and you can save them. By saving them, I mean essentially just bashing them in with a shovel before the ghouls get to them. Of course, there is also the option to dig them out, but just the fact that you can do the first option is just crazy. It is definitely a crime. Logically, you might think, wouldn't it be the best to actually, defeat these ghouls that are a threat and to dig out the humans? But this is sort of like a mini strat hole, getting to the victims before the others do. Number 3. Pandaria. Saying that we caused a mess in Pandaria is a complete understatement. This continent has been shrouded in mist for thousands of years, and the shattering broke the illusion, and both the Horde and the Alliance realized that this is now free real estate. So both factions came in, including us players, and we just caused a bunch of mayhem. Not only did we start murdering the natives of the continent, stoking the flames of the Hose and Jinyu War, we also started battling each other upon the newly discovered continent, causing a ton of collateral damage. Worst of all, since none of us really knew how Pandaria worked, we caused so much anger and hatred that the Shah just started having a field day all over Pandaria. The continent was incredibly susceptible to negative thoughts and anger due to old god heritage and Yasharaj, and we pretty much just swooped in and brought an endless amount of hatred. While I could put out specific questlines and various immoral things, I'd say just the entire Pandaria campaign was pretty much just us colonizing and doing whatever because, you know, we had the armies, we had the force, so we could just do whatever we want. Now, that is not to say that we didn't also do a lot of positive things in Pandaria and defeated many powerful ancient foes, but that in itself doesn't really discount the bad stuff. Number 2. Playing the police. This isn't a specific point as it applies especially to Warcraft since Classic, but we did participate in a countless number of events. What I mean by this point is that when we reach new zones, discover new areas or whatever, we just give ourselves the right to decide who is evil, who isn't, and just straight out go on missions to exterminate whoever we decide is bad. Usually this isn't even a very well thought out process. It is generally you go to an area, NPC tells you, you know, these murlocs are bad, and then immediately gives us the right to completely destroy an entire tribe and to just wipe them off the face of the earth. With murlocs, it is particularly bad because one time we even came in with a white flag pretending to be friendly, only to attack them through deception. However, this applies to so many other races such as the Arakoa, Saberon, various troll tribes, Volvar, and whoever else came upon us. There were cases where it was justifiable, there were cases where it wasn't, and where it was in between, but it still doesn't really give us the right to play interdimensional police and to just wipe out whoever we deem as bad. Worst of all, in most of these cases, the Horde and the Alliance did all of this out of selfish reasons to strengthen their own position, to ally with other natives by destroying their enemies, and ultimately to further their own goals. Lastly, number 1, faction-specific conflicts. This is just one major huge point combining both Alliance and Horde crimes, but ultimately the thing that ties them all together is that we as players participated in all of them. This is the destruction of Terramore, this is the execution of surrendering combatants by the Alliance, this is the bombing of druids in Stone Tunnel Mountains, this is the purge of Dalaran done by the Alliance. Then you have the use of the plague by the Horde and Sylvanas, and you have the firebombing of Camp Taurajo. Really, the examples are endless, and these are just some of them. Now, in order to be fair, statistically, the Horde did commit more crimes than the Alliance, this is just facts, but in most of these, we as players participated in them. So while we are the champions, the saviors of the universe, the Kingslayers, and the heroes that stop the Legion, at the same time, we are the ones mana-bombing Terramore, attacking civilians, and committing various crimes. Thank you for watching. Check out what are the worst crimes of Sylvanas by clicking on the screen, and also check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history and science. See you next time.